Let's have a look at what a director can claim as an expense for using his home as an office. So it's firstly very important to note that there are three options. Let's look at the first option, which is the most easiest one of them all. And in this case, what you can simply do is claim £6 per week for using your home as an office. So in a simple example, if you've worked 40 out of your 52 weeks working from home, then you can claim 40 times £6, £240 you can put through as a use home as office expense claim. Second option. The second option is a little bit more complicated to do, but you can actually claim for the incremental cost incurred. So let's have a look at an example of what that will look like. In order to claim for incremental cost, you need to be able to show to HMRC in some shape or form the extra cost that you've incurred for running or operating from your home. So in this example, if you look at phone bill, maybe that's an easy one. If you've got a landline coming to the house and you make business as well as personal calls, then you can just use the itemized billing to highlight all the business calls. Easy way to calculate the extra costs relating to your business. Internet line, maybe you've got a video editing business and you have a dedicated line to your house for business purposes, as well as a personal line that you only use for personal purposes. So business line, you can then claim. Be careful though, when you've got only a business line to your house, which is in your business name and you pay from your business bank account. If you use that business line for personal use as well, then you will trigger a benefit in kind tax. So be careful of that. Another one, water rates. Maybe you've got a business that uses a lot of water, and maybe you've got a meter that keeps track of all the water that you use for the business purposes. So easy way to split out and show to HMRC the cost incurred for running the business from your home. Make sure you keep copies of all the bills, all the calculations, but still a very easy way to claim for use home as office expenses. But you need to do the work to make sure you can differentiate and substantiate your calculations. Now let's look at option 3. Now, option 3 is by far the most work involved, the most calculations, the most admin, but most likely will result in the biggest amount that you can claim for use home as office. So what will that involve? In this example, the company will actually pay you rent for using your home as an office. In order to do this, you need to draw up a rental agreement between yourself and the company, and you need to make sure that that's a rolling contract. The total rent the company pays you should be reasonable, so compared to renting a local office to your house. So if you do research about that, make sure you keep copies of that research that you can show to HMRC if they ever query you on this. The rental income should then be declared in your personal tax return. So in your personal tax return, you can have that as rental income, and then you can claim the portion of your bills that relates to the business as expenses. So if your calculations are accurate, the rental income should be offset with the rental expenses. But you need to make sure your calculations are accurate, that you don't create a rental profit all of a sudden in your personal tax return. Then if you live outside of the UK and you want to claim use of home as office, then you need to make sure or check your local tax laws how that rental income will be treated. But let's have a look at an example again. Now, for option 3, I'm going to break down the calculation in 2 steps. The first part of the calculation is to calculate a percentage that we can claim for those expenses for use home as office. Now, in order to calculate that percentage, you need to take a time apportionment and a floor space apportionment. So in this example, let's say you've got a 6-bedroom house, you use 1 room for an office, that takes divide by 6, that's 16.67%. And let's say you work 5 out of 7 days from the house. So 5 divided by 7, 71%. If you multiply 16.67% times 71%, you get 12%. So that is the percentage that we will use if this is your scenario. Always remember, weekends will be considered as personal use. Another case is, let's say you've got a studio flat, so you don't have many bedrooms, and you sit and work from the dining room. You need to be reasonable with what you use here. So you can't say I'm using the whole of my living room as an office. You also use that same room as a living room. Maybe it's part of your kitchen even. So in that case, you've got to use the desk space that you use for working from home. And maybe you will see a reasonable amount is 10%. So then use 10% and multiply it by number of days work from home during the week to get your percentage. Maybe you're a plumber and you've got a whole garage that you use for business purposes. So maybe that's a higher percentage. And maybe because it's not used for anything else, you use it for business purposes only. You can use it for 7 out of 7 days. But be very careful if you own the property. Because if you say you're using a space exclusively for business purposes, then that will affect your primary residence relief when you one day sell the property. So it means a capital gain on your house that could be tax-free, part of that could become taxable. So be very careful. We always advise not to use spaces exclusively for business purposes in your home if you own the property. So let's go and have a look at how we apply this 12% to the calculation, to the rest of the calculation now. Now, that percentage can be applied to all your fixed costs for running your home. So here's an example of the type of fixed costs that you can consider. Please note, if you own the property for a director of a limited company, you can't claim for interest on your mortgage or capital repayments. You can only claim if you're renting the property, you can include that. Then things like council tax, water rates, etc., repairs as well. And then you will see at the bottom I've added up all the costs and you multiply it by 12%, which gives you the amount that you can claim as from your fixed cost for working from home. You will still be able to also claim your incremental costs with option 3. So you'll be able to add that two together to claim the total amount for working from home. I know option 3 is a lot of work, but make sure you've got your rental agreement in place and you comply with all those steps. The risk is if you don't do it, HMRC come and have a look at your books. They pick up that you didn't follow the procedure and you've been doing it for 10 years. They can disallow it for 10 years and possibly charge you interest and penalties. So not worth it. If you want to go down option 3 and use it, make sure you take all the necessary steps to get it right. And if it's too much work for you, you can always go to option 1 and just claim £6 per week.